At our family anniversary dinner, my father leaned forward, napkin still crumpled in his hand. His tone was calm, but every syllable carried weight. Tell me, Lucy, he said. The $200,000 I gave you. What did you do with it? The entire room froze. Forks hung midair. My mother's smile faltered, and my brother's face went pale. My heart pounded so loudly I thought everyone could hear it, but I didn't flinch. What money? I asked, keeping my voice steady, measured. The chandelier above us buzzed softly, the only sound between us. I looked at them, one guilty, one terrified, and slowly reached for my phone. Opening a folder, I slid it across the table toward my father. His eyes widened. He hadn't expected that. Just the night before, I had been back in my Seattle apartment, my quiet, peaceful sanctuary. Fabric samples scattered across the table, marketing drafts half finished, a cup of cold coffee beside me. That life was simple, predictable, and mine alone. No favors, no shortcuts. Everything I had built came from my own hands. Maybe that's why my father, Robert Bennett, always said I reminded him of himself. He ran a modest construction business in Portland, and every time we spoke, he'd end the call with the same words. I'm proud of you, Lucy. He never said that to my brother. Jason Bennett was the family's golden son who never quite lived up to the shine. 3 years older than me. Charming, ambitious, and utterly reckless. He'd burned through every business loan, every opportunity, and somehow always landed on his feet. Because our mother, Elaine, always made sure he did. Growing up, she called him my boy with big dreams. I was the responsible one, the one who cleaned up after his messes. A week before that dinner, Jason called me. His voice was soft, careful, and strangely rehearsed. Hey, Dad's not feeling great, he said. We might cancel the anniversary dinner. Cancel? I frowned. He just emailed me about ordering wine for it. He hesitated. He's been tired. I just think it's best if you don't come this time. The line went silent. His tone, it didn't sit right. This was my father's 60th birthday and his 40th anniversary. He had planned this event for months. There was no way he'd cancel without calling me himself. So I called him. He picked up on the second ring, his voice full of energy. Lucy, you're still coming, right? Wait till you see what your mother's done with the place. That's when I knew Jason had lied. On the flight to Portland, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he just wanted attention. Maybe he didn't want tension between us. Maybe Mom was trying to keep the peace. But deep down, I knew better. Something darker was at play. That dinner wasn't just a celebration. It was a setup. When I arrived at the Bennett house, nothing had changed. The white siding gleamed, the hedges trimmed perfectly, and that familiar scent of pine candles floated in the air, the ones Mom always lit before guests arrived. She greeted me with a smile so polished it almost hurt to look at. Her hug was warm, but empty, like a rehearsed performance. Jason appeared behind her, flashing his too bright grin. You made it, he said, voice a little too cheerful. I smiled back, but there was a flicker in his eyes, something nervous, watchful. And for the first time in years, I felt like a stranger in my own home. The next morning, I woke to the smell of bacon and the sound of my mother humming in the kitchen. The house was spotless, almost unnervingly so. Every photo frame gleamed, every candle perfectly aligned. It wasn't hospitality. It was control. At breakfast, Dad was cheerful, chatting about the new deck he was building for a client. He looked healthy, strong, nothing like the sick man Jason had described. Across from him, Jason pushed food around his plate, pretending not to notice my stare. When Dad stepped out to take a call, Mom leaned closer. Lucy, she said quietly, let's not bring up work or money tonight, okay? Your brother's been under stress. Stress? I asked. From what? She hesitated, just long enough for the lie to show. You know Jason, she said. He's just trying to figure things out. Don't make tonight tense. That's when I noticed her hands, her nails, usually perfect, were chipped. Not stress, worry. Later that afternoon, while setting the table, I heard Jason's voice from the next room. Low, tense, and sharp. No, I told you I'll pay it next week. I have it handled. Don't call me again. He froze when he saw me standing there. What's that about? I asked. Business, he said too quickly, slipping his phone into his pocket. You wouldn't understand. Maybe he was right, because I couldn't understand how someone could lie so easily. When he left, I noticed a neat stack of envelopes on the counter. Receipts, folded precisely. One of them bore the logo of an investment firm I recognized, my father's investment firm. My stomach twisted. That night, as guests began to arrive, I slipped away to my old bedroom upstairs. The screen of my phone glowed in the dark, an email notification flashing. Transfer confirmation, $200,000 completed. My name was on it. I stared at the number, the breath catching in my throat. The money had come from a joint account I hadn't seen in years. Jason Bennett. My hands went cold. I didn't know how he'd done it yet, but I knew why he had lied about the dinner. And I knew that the truth was going to explode in that dining room soon enough. I barely slept that night. The glow of my phone lit the walls as I scrolled through every transaction, every confirmation email. The pattern was undeniable. Tiny test payments at first, then one massive transfer. All signed digitally, all under my name. Someone inside my family had done this. When the sun began to rise, I went downstairs. Mom was already in the kitchen, humming softly while making coffee, as if the world hadn't shifted overnight. I placed my phone on the counter. Mom, I asked quietly, did you know about this? She looked up, startled or pretending to be. Know about what, honey? I turned the screen toward her. The $200,000 transfer glowed between us like a confession. Her face tightened, then softened. Lucy, she whispered, please. Jason was in trouble. It was supposed to be temporary. He said he'd return it before anyone noticed. My stomach dropped. Before who noticed? I asked. Dad or me? She sighed, eyes darting toward the hallway, as if expecting my father to appear. You've always been so independent, she said, voice trembling. You wouldn't miss it. Your brother needed help. That sentence hit harder than any slap could have. You wouldn't miss it. I picked up my phone and walked out before she could say another word. I drove straight to Aunt Marjorie's diner, the one place where truth had never been negotiable. The place smelled like burnt toast and black coffee, comforting in its honesty. When I told her everything, she didn't even look surprised. I figured as much, she said, sliding a manila folder across the table. He came here last month, bragging about some investment deal. Paid for lunch with $100 bills. I kept the receipts. Inside were copies of payments, hotel bookings, designer purchases, all dated within the same week that money vanished. I took photos of everything and sent them to Caroline Ross, my father's lawyer and an old friend of his from college. She called back within minutes. Lucy, she said, her tone sharp, professional, this isn't a misunderstanding. It's financial fraud. If your father thinks you took it, you need to clear your name immediately. I'm not confronting him yet, I said. Not until they're both in the same room. Caroline paused. Then make sure you have proof ready. I exhaled, a bitter calm settling over me. Oh, I already do. That night, the dinner table gleamed beneath the chandelier. Mom arranged the napkins with surgical precision. Jason poured wine like he was hosting a show, and I sat at the far end, my phone resting beside my plate. Inside that phone was the folder, the proof, and I was ready. The evening began like every family celebration. Too much wine, too many polite laughs, and just enough tension to choke on. The chandelier's golden light washed over a picture-perfect feast. Roasted salmon, lemon tart, polished silver that reflected our faces like mirrors. Dad looked happy. His cheeks were flushed, his laugh full and easy, his eyes soft when they landed on me. Lucy, he said warmly, pouring me a glass. I still can't believe you flew in just for this. I forced a smile. Wouldn't miss it for the world. Jason sat across from me, tapping his thumb against the table. His smile was too bright, too deliberate. Every so often, he'd glance at Mom, and she'd give him a small nod, like they were keeping rhythm to some unspoken secret. For an hour, it almost felt normal. Stories about Dad's business. Aunt Marjorie teasing him about his new gray hairs. I almost believed the worst was behind me. But the lie sat between us, thick, heavy, and waiting. Then Dad leaned forward, napkin still in hand, voice calm but cutting through the noise like a blade. Tell me, Lucy, he said. The $200,000 I gave you. What did you do with it? Laughter died midair. The room froze again. My pulse slammed once hard, then stopped. What? I whispered. He didn't blink. The 200,000, he repeated. I transferred it months ago. Your brother said you were using it for something private. But I want to hear it from you. My mother's face went rigid. Jason's hand tightened around his wine glass. What? I stammered. 200,000. The chandelier hummed above, the faint buzz deafening now. Jason laughed too loudly. Come on, Dad. Lucy probably forgot. She's got so much going on in Seattle. Dad's gaze cut toward him, sharp and cold. Forgotten? 200,000 isn't pocket change, Jason. Jason's smile faltered. The table had gone silent. Even Aunt Marjorie stopped mid-sip, eyes narrowing. I never received that money, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. If you sent it, I never saw a cent. Dad frowned. I have the confirmation, Lucy. Same account you used for the business fund. It was your name. I took a breath, steady and deliberate. Then maybe you should look closer at who else had access to it. Mom stiffened. Robert not here, she whispered. He turned to her, confused. Why not? If there's a problem, we fix it. Jason set his fork down. The clink against the plate was sharp, final. Dad, it's not a big deal. I can explain. I cut him off, my voice calm but cold. Explain what, Jason? The transfer you made under my name, or the hotel bills that came right after? He froze. Dad's eyes snapped toward me. What are you talking about? I reached for my phone, unlocked it, and slid it across the table. On the screen glowed every transaction, each payment, time-stamped, authorized from Jason's IP address. Receipts, calls, screenshots, proof. Dad's face drained of color as he scrolled. Jason, he said, voice breaking, you did this? Jason's voice cracked. Dad, please, it's not what you think. I borrowed it. I was going to pay it back. Dad's tone hardened. Borrowed? You forged your sister's access and stole her money. Mom shot up, trembling. Robert, stop yelling. He made a mistake. A mistake? Dad snapped, rising to his feet. Elaine, you knew. She hesitated, tears filling her eyes. He was drowning in debt, Robert. I thought if Lucy never found out, no one would get hurt. I laughed, a bitter, broken sound. You thought I'd never find out? You signed my name. You let him take everything. Jason stood, hands shaking. I was desperate, Lucy. I didn't mean to ruin anything. My voice cracked. Desperate enough to let Dad accuse me of theft? You sat there while he humiliated me for something you did. The guests were silent now. No laughter. No clinking glasses. Just the sound of my father's furious breathing. He turned to my mother. You two planned this. Robert, please, she cried. It was for our family. He slammed his hand against the table, the plates rattling. No, Elaine. Family doesn't lie. Family doesn't steal. Jason's voice was barely a whisper. Dad, don't do this. We can fix it. Dad pulled out his phone. You're right. We can. He dialed a number without hesitation. Yes, he said, voice icy. I need to report a theft. $200,000. Mom screamed. Robert, stop. Don't do this to him. He didn't even look at her. He did this to himself. Jason sank into his chair, his face buried in his hands. The chandelier buzzed above us, humming like static. I sat there in silence, my pulse finally steady. 30 minutes later, the police arrived. Red and blue lights flashed across the dining room walls. The room that once felt grand now seemed small, colorless. Jason didn't resist. Mom begged and sobbed, clutching his arm, but he refused to meet her eyes. Dad signed the statement without a word. When he looked at me, there was no pride left, only heartbreak. Lucy, he said quietly, I'm sorry. I shook my head. You believed what they told you. You had every reason to. He reached for my hand, but I pulled it away gently. You wanted to know what I did with your money, I said softly. I protected it from them. The officers led Jason out. Mom followed, screaming promises no one believed anymore. The door closed behind them. Silence. Only the faint wail of sirens fading into the night. Aunt Marjorie came over and rested a hand on my shoulder. You did the right thing, she whispered. I looked down at the folder still open on the table, the phone screen dimming slowly. Maybe, I said, but it doesn't feel like it. Dad sank into his chair, rubbing his temples. I raised them both, he murmured. How did we end up here? I didn't answer. There was nothing left to say. Outside, the police lights shimmered against the window, the same cold glow that once came from our chandelier. And I realized something simple, something final. Sometimes justice doesn't sound like victory. It sounds like silence. My father stared at the documents in front of him, eyes dark and unblinking. For a long, unbearable silence, no one moved. Only the soft clink of a spoon falling onto a plate broke the stillness. He looked up at Jason, his voice low, trembling with something between rage and heartbreak. You stole from me? Jason's mouth opened, but no words came out. He looked to my mother, pleading silently for help. She reached out a trembling hand toward my father. Robert, please don't. But he slammed his hand against the table, the echo cutting through the air like a crack of thunder. Don't what, Elaine? Pretend this didn't happen? $200,000 vanished, and you want me to stay quiet. Tears filled her eyes. He was desperate. The business. His business. Dad interrupted. Or his gambling? Jason flinched. His head dropped, shame creeping up his neck. I felt no satisfaction, only a hollow ache. This wasn't how I wanted the truth to come out, but it was the only way left. Dad, I said softly, the transfer came from your joint account. He used my name, my ID. I only found out 2 days ago. My father's face turned pale. He turned slowly to Jason. You used her name? Jason's voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just needed time to fix things. Time? My father's voice rose. You've had years of time. Every time you failed, I bailed you out. Every lie, every scheme, every broken promise, you had a way out. But this time, you dragged your sister into it. Jason's eyes glistened. I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. And when was that going to be? I asked quietly. He turned to me, desperation in his voice. Lucy, please, you have to believe me. I didn't want to hurt you. I just needed to keep the business running. The business you lost months ago, I said coldly. He froze. His lips parted, but no sound came out. My mother gasped. What are you talking about? I slid another folder across the table, bank statements, foreclosure notices, and an email from his investors pulling out. The company's been bankrupt for half a year. He didn't tell you because he was too busy pretending he still had everything under control. Mom covered her mouth. Her tears finally spilled over. Jason just sat there, eyes darting between us, like a child cornered in his own lie. Dad pushed his chair back slowly, his expression unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was quiet but deadly calm. Get out. Jason's head snapped up. Dad. I said get out of my house. Please, just let me explain. Explain what? Dad shouted, his voice cracking. That you stole from your own family? That you used your sister's name to hide it? You don't get to explain. You're done. Jason's face crumbled. He stood up slowly, tears streaking down his cheeks. Mom tried to stand, but Dad raised his hand. If you walk out with him, don't bother coming back. Her lips trembled. For a moment, she looked between the two of them, between the son she'd always protected and the husband she'd betrayed through silence. And then she sank back into her chair, sobbing quietly. Jason didn't say another word. He walked out, his footsteps echoing down the hall until the front door slammed shut. Silence filled the room again, the kind that doesn't just linger, it stains. My father sat down heavily, running a hand over his face. I should have seen it coming, he murmured. I kept thinking if I gave him one more chance, he'd change. I reached over, gently touching his arm. You tried, Dad. You did everything a father could. He looked at me then, his eyes red but clear. Not everything. I forgot the one child who never asked for anything. Tears stung my eyes, but I smiled weakly. I never needed to, Dad. You already gave me everything that mattered. He pulled me into a hug, tight, wordless, and full of regret. For the first time that night, I felt the weight in his chest ease, just a little. Across the table, my mother sat in silence, her head bowed. Maybe she finally saw what her protection had cost. That night, after everyone left, I stood outside under the porch light, listening to the rain start to fall. The house behind me glowed softly, warm, quiet, but changed forever. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. I'm sorry. You were right. Jason. I stared at it for a long time, then turned the phone off. Some debts, I thought, can't be repaid with money. And as the rain fell harder, washing the world clean, I realized something my father had always known. Sometimes, love means letting go not to punish, but to finally let the truth breathe.